Hi, this is Dr. B with your emotional minutes. Now, a lot of times if I'm out and maybe out in public at a sporting event or something like that, and I strike up a conversation with someone and I tell them I'm a psychologist, first of all, they ask me if I'm analyzing them, which is usually not the case. So if you meet a psychologist, they're usually not just trying to analyze you. But another question I often get actually is, hey, I've thought about getting a counselor, or I want to get a counselor for my kid, or my spouse has asked about it, or something like that. And oftentimes people will ask me in that conversation, what do I look for in a counselor? What would tell me that somebody would help me in the way that I need help? So there's a couple ways to go about that. A lot of times mental health professionals will have websites where they kind of advertise what they do and the approach that they take. So oftentimes one kind of simple way to look at it is what do you want to get done in counseling? So, do you want to experience less depression? Do you want to improve how you interact with family members or with a spouse or a significant other? And then oftentimes you can find out if that person specializes in those types of difficulties or those types of issues or goals that you might have. And then the second way I would say is it's usually good to look for someone who's kind of working from some distinct approach. And what I mean by that is somebody who has an approach that is something like a cognitive behavioral approach or an acceptance and commitment therapy approach or a psychodynamic approach. And you can kind of Google what some of those might mean. And the reason to look for one of those real kind of distinct approaches that someone might talk about is that research has actually found that therapy tends to be most effective when it has two key elements. One, when the therapist has empathy, and so you hope you get a therapist who's empathetic. But then two, when they have empathy and they're also working from some distinct theoretical framework. So there can be counselors out there who are really empathetic and really great and have a lot of good sort of will behind their work. They really want to help people. But I've heard clients talk about going in and, they just kind of talk and the person is really supportive and listens to them well. But it's just sort of a listening, supportive session. And I've also heard clients say that they've gone to counselors who, have some sort of very kind of distinct framework, but really aren't listening that well or don't seem like they're sort of understanding what the person's going through. And the best therapeutic approaches tend to have both. And that's actually something that research has consistently found. And unfortunately, one without the other isn't shown to work well. So that's usually what I tell people. If you can find a therapist who's working from a specific theoretical framework, and then also, you'll find out through the process, do they display a good deal of empathy? And when you find both of those, then you're probably in the right place. Then you're probably in a good spot. And then the next question to consider that a lot of people think about when they're looking for a counselor or a mental health provider is whether or not that counselor takes your insurance. And this can be a thing that takes a little bit of background research to check into. And usually the thing I recommend is to find 3 or 4 counselors that seem to fit your goals in terms of what you want to get done in therapy and also have one of those specific approaches like I talked about. And then you can contact that counselor, whether you call them or check their website, to see if they take your insurance. Or you can also contact your insurance company by calling your insurance company or checking your insurance company website to see if they're listed as a provider under your insurance. And then you can contact that counselor and set up an appointment from there. And so hopefully that was helpful today in terms of, what you might look for in a counselor if you're looking for a counselor. And if you are looking for a counselor, good luck and congratulations, because that can often take a good amount of bravery to take that step to say, hey, there's something in my life that I want to work on. And there's something in my life that I really want to examine. And again, this is Dr. B with your Emotional Minutes. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment box. And we will see you next time on Emotional Minutes.